Robert Bob Bosley was born on August 2nd, 1962, in the quiet town of Alexandria, nestled in Campbell County, Kentucky. Raised in a religious, close-knit family alongside his siblings, Deborah, Henry Jr., and James, Bob showed signs early on of a sharp mind and ambitious spirit. While much of his early life remains undocumented, what is known is that even before reaching adulthood, Bob had already begun charting his own course. He had a vision to become wealthy and run his own business. Starting from the ground up, Bob offered chimney cleaning and small-scale roof repairs. With long days, modest pricing, and an impeccable work ethic, he slowly built a reputation as a dependable and friendly worker. His solo effort paid off. Over time, Bob transformed his one-man service into a thriving enterprise, Bosley Roofing and Chimney Sweep of Alexandria. Under his watchful eye, the company became known for quality, efficiency, and reliability, earning both loyal clients and impressive profits. With money pouring in, Bob set his sights even higher. He began acquiring rental properties, eventually owning around 20. These investments amplified his income, positioning him as one of the area's most successful businessmen. Wealth soon translated into lifestyle. Bob embraced luxury, sports cars, horses, an airplane, a sizable boat, and an arsenal of expensive firearms. His boat, often seen cruising Lake Cumberland, became infamous for its wild adult-only parties filled with alcohol, music, and scantily clad guests. It was at one of his favorite local restaurants where Bob met 18-year-old Amy Pave. Amy, also from Alexandria, came from humble beginnings. Born in 1969 into a working-class family, her life was shaped by financial limitations and a household affected by her father's struggle with alcohol. Still, Amy was determined to break the cycle. After graduating high school with top honors in 1986, she pursued business studies at a local community college connected to Northern Kentucky University. To fund her education, she worked as a waitress, where she crossed paths with Bob. He was older, wealthy, and charismatic. At first reserved, Amy soon found herself drawn into his world. She began attending his notorious lake parties, gradually becoming a regular fixture in his inner circle. But Amy didn't remain just another guest. She captured Bob's heart. Their relationship grew serious, and after 4 years together, the two were married. For Amy, it was the ultimate transformation. She had gone from modest roots to marrying one of the most sought-after bachelors in the region. Soon, the couple started a family. Their daughter Morgan was born in 1996, followed by a son, Trevor, 3 years later. Amy, once the carefree partygoer, shifted into the role of devoted mother. Her wild nights on the lake were replaced with school functions and parenting. Bob continued to expand his business and investments, but one area frustrated him: administration. Managing payroll, taxes, invoices, and contractors was a burden he resented. He preferred the freedom of the lake over the confines of an office. Weekends often saw him vanishing aboard his boat, sometimes for days, refusing to disclose his whereabouts. Friends later recalled that Bob had begun drifting away from his family, drawn back into a life of indulgence and secrecy. Some sources even claim that he and Amy had an open relationship. Regardless of the truth, Bob eventually decided to merge his personal and professional life more closely. Since Amy had studied business administration, he asked her to take over the company's financial and administrative responsibilities. At first, Amy seemed hesitant, but eventually she agreed. From then on, she managed the company's books, payroll, and tax obligations. The business was booming, and the Bosleys appeared to be thriving. They lived in a rustic log cabin nestled in the woods south of Alexandria, a temporary residence while their dream home was being built nearby. A sprawling estate with 14 acres of land, complete with stained glass windows, a stone tower, and even Gothic gargoyles. To the outside world, the Bosleys embodied the American dream. They were attractive, successful, generous with their time, and deeply involved in their church and children's school activities. Bob often donated services to low-income families, and his name was respected throughout the community. But like many fairy tales, their story had a dark side. Behind the scenes, Amy's role as administrator gave her access to the full financial picture, and with Bob distracted by business expansion, the lake, and the Dream House project, Amy quietly began diverting company funds. Instead of paying the company's taxes, she rerouted the money into an undisclosed personal account. This embezzlement went unnoticed for years, but no one avoids the IRS forever. The Internal Revenue Service had been tracking the company's missing tax payments. They issued repeated letters, made calls, and even attempted to set up meetings. But Bob never received any of these warnings. That's because Amy had arranged for all IRS correspondence to be delivered to a private mailbox only she could access. She was well aware the government was closing in, but perhaps she believed she could keep stalling indefinitely. Everything changed on the morning of Tuesday, May 17, 2005, just days before the couple's 15th wedding anniversary. Around 5 a.m., a frantic 911 call came in from Amy Bosley. Her panicked voice filled the line, but the call was suddenly cut off by a loud crashing sound. Dispatchers tried to reconnect. Moments later, law enforcement was racing to the Bosley cabin. When officers arrived, they found Amy in shock, clutching her children. Her sister soon arrived to take the kids, while Amy was brought in for questioning. Police secured the scene and called in the crime scene unit. At first light, additional officers arrived to search the surrounding forest with K-9 units and even a helicopter, searching for what they believed was a fleeing intruder. Inside the bedroom, they discovered Bob's lifeless body. He was found kneeling by the side of the bed, slumped forward, riddled with gunshot wounds. Yet oddly, only 2 shell casings were found in the room, raising more questions than answers. Instead of bringing clarity, the investigation only deepened the mystery. And as detectives continued combing through the evidence, they began to suspect that the crime scene, and perhaps the entire story, wasn't what it seemed. Aside from the children's bedrooms, the entire house was in disarray. Kitchen cabinets stood wide open, including the ones beneath the sink, a strange place for a thief to search. A rear door had a broken window, suggesting a possible point of entry, but curiously, most of the shattered glass was found outside, not inside, an inconsistency that raised eyebrows from the start. The signs of disorder continued throughout the house. In the bathroom, the mirrored cabinet was open, and prescription bottles were scattered across the floor. It looked more like staged chaos than the aftermath of a fast, focused intruder. And based on the 911 call made by Amy, the alleged assailant had fled quickly. So, why the mess? While crime scene investigators worked through the house, detectives began questioning Amy Bosley at the station. She appeared shaken, distraught at times, but often confused, as if struggling to keep her story straight. She described the intruder as a white male, with a nasal voice, bad breath, and a distinct odor of urine. According to Amy, he had burst in during the night and attacked both her and Bob. She displayed 2 marks on her chest, claiming they were from the assault. When asked who might have wanted to harm Bob, Amy floated the idea that he wasn't well liked, suggesting he had a wild reputation and might have made enemies among disgruntled employees. She specifically named Noah Heim, a contractor and longtime friend of Bob, as someone who had recently argued with him. But Noah was quickly ruled out. He had a solid alibi and was deeply affected by Bob's death. Meanwhile, panic rippled through the Alexandria community. Schools were closed for several days as fear of a killer on the loose took hold. Neighbors couldn't reconcile the idea that someone as kind and generous as Bob, known to give the shirt off his back, had been brutally gunned down in his own home. Back at the cabin, detectives searched for answers. Only 2 shell casings were recovered near Bob's body, despite multiple gunshot wounds. That led investigators to expand their search to the basement. There, inside the family's washing machine, they found soaked clothing, and at the bottom, a folded cloth containing 4 additional shell casings. Why would a fleeing killer take the time to hide evidence in a washer inside the victim's home? It didn't make sense. Even stranger, an aluminum baseball bat was found nearby with fresh scratches and white residue. Lab analysis would be needed to determine its significance. For now, Amy was released and allowed to reunite with her children. But the puzzle pieces were falling into place. The crime scene appeared staged. Valuables, including stacks of cash, were left untouched. Amy's emotional display seemed hollow. No tears, no real grief. Investigators suspected there was more beneath the surface. And then came the breakthrough. Staff from the IRS visited the station after hearing about Bob's death. They had been trying for months to contact him regarding a massive unpaid tax bill, over $1.7 million. A meeting had been scheduled for the very day Bob was found dead. The IRS agents also revealed something bizarre. During a previous call, they had spoken to someone who claimed to be Bob, but the voice was strange, high-pitched, and clearly unnatural. To them, it sounded like a woman pretending to be a man. That voice had been Amy's. Now, the motive was clear. Amy, entrusted with the company's finances, had siphoned off hundreds of thousands of dollars, diverting tax payments into her own private account. Bob, who had no idea what was happening, was about to discover the truth just as the IRS prepared to confront him face to face. Adding to the tension were Bob's alleged affairs. His sister later told investigators she once overheard Amy say that if Bob ever cheated or left her, she would shoot him. At the time, it sounded like a joke. Now, it sounded like a promise. Despite mounting evidence, Amy Bosley continued to deny any involvement in her husband's murder. During her second interrogation, she insisted she loved Bob, even if their marriage wasn't perfect. She admitted they had their problems, what couple didn't, but claimed there was no reason she would ever harm the father of her children. But investigators saw a different picture. Ballistics testing confirmed that all 6 bullets that struck Bob matched the 6 casings collected, 2 in the bedroom and 4 hidden in the washing machine. Then came a pivotal moment in the investigation. Interviews with Morgan and Trevor Bosley, ages 9 and 6. Questioned separately, both children gave identical accounts. They had gone to sleep peacefully, only to be startled awake by 6 gunshots. Then, they heard glass shattering. Amy's version of events had the order reversed, first the glass breaking, then the shots. Her story was unraveling. Even the scratches on her chest, presented as injuries from a struggle with the intruder, were suspicious. The marks were too symmetrical, more like staged wounds than defensive injuries. Further examination of her blouse revealed that it hadn't been torn during the alleged attack. It had been carefully cut with scissors, then ripped to appear damaged. Less than 2 weeks after Bob's murder, authorities arrested Amy Bosley and formally charged her with his homicide. One crucial piece was still missing: the murder weapon. That too eventually surfaced, though how it was discovered remains disputed. According to one account, A pistol from Bob's own gun collection was found hidden in Amy's handbag, tucked behind a wardrobe. A second version claims the weapon was discovered later by Amy's sister, who had taken custody of her children and belongings that night. While sorting through Amy's purse, she allegedly found the gun and immediately contacted a lawyer who turned it over to police. Regardless of how it was recovered, ballistic testing confirmed the gun matched the 6 casings found at the crime scene and in the laundry. The bullets inside Bob's body were too damaged to confirm a direct match, but the circumstantial case was overwhelming. As the trial began, prosecutors painted a clear and damning narrative. For years, Amy had secretly bled Bob's company dry, diverting tax payments and pocketing the money. She kept the IRS at bay through mail redirection and deception, but her luck had run out. On the morning of May 17, 2005, Bob was scheduled to meet with IRS agents who were demanding answers. Amy knew what that meeting meant: exposure, divorce, prison. And so, the once respected wife, mother, and community volunteer devised a desperate plan. The night before the IRS meeting, with her children sleeping nearby and her husband unaware, Amy quietly retrieved one of Bob's firearms. Some reports even suggest she sedated the children beforehand. Standing at his bedside while he slept, she fired. Bob, wounded, but not immediately killed, awoke and tried to stop her. According to investigators, the trajectory of his injuries indicated that he lunged toward the attacker, only to realize too late that the gun was in Amy's hands. Stunned, bleeding, and betrayed, Bob couldn't overpower her. She fired again. By the time it was over, the man who had built a fortune from scratch, who had trusted Amy with everything, lay dead in the home they were building for their future. And the woman who once stood by his side now stood accused of orchestrating his execution, not out of fear, but out of greed. Amy Bosley's carefully constructed life of luxury and respect had collapsed in a single night of cold calculation. What remained was a shattered family, a stunned community, and a legacy of betrayal that would never be forgotten. She shattered the rear glass door with a baseball bat, tore through cabinets and drawers to simulate a burglary, then hid 4 spent casings wrapped in a cloth at the bottom of the washing machine. To make her wounds appear credible, Amy lightly cut her chest with what was likely scissors, then slashed her blouse to simulate a struggle. She ended her performance with a desperate 911 call, her voice frantic, the scene staged. Forensic evidence told a different story. Lab analysis confirmed that glass fragments on the aluminum bat matched the broken rear door. The bat, identified by her children as belonging to the family, had not been wielded by an intruder, but used as a prop by Amy herself. Police found no footprints, no vehicle tracks, no sign of anyone matching the description Amy gave. No outsider had come or gone that night. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered the truth about the Bosleys' marriage. Amy was convinced Bob had been unfaithful. Photos retrieved from the couple's safe, taken during wild parties on Lake Cumberland, revealed a second life and confirmed at least one extramarital affair. But while betrayal may have burned, the motive went far deeper. Amy's secret was unraveling. She had embezzled nearly $2 million from her husband's company by failing to pay taxes and diverting the money elsewhere. The IRS had scheduled a meeting with Bob for the morning after his murder, one that would have exposed everything. Killing him, Amy believed, would bury the secret. With Bob gone, his assets would cover the debt, and she could walk away with the rest. But the children's testimony, hearing the gunshots before the glass shattered, destroyed her timeline. And though the defense claimed the bullet casings could have been dropped from Bob's own pockets after visiting the shooting range, the evidence piled up. Still, Amy's attorney argued there were no witnesses, no DNA, and no definitive link between the casings and the bullets in Bob's body. With enough ambiguity, they might sway the jury. Fearing Amy might walk free, and unwilling to force the Bosley children to testify against their mother, prosecutors offered a plea deal. Amy would avoid a trial, spare her children the trauma, and receive a reduced sentence. In exchange, she admitted guilt, without ever revealing what she had done with the stolen millions. On November 2, 2006, Amy Bosley entered a Campbell County courtroom in a green and white prison jumpsuit. Her demeanor was unreadable. Before sentencing, Bob's family addressed her directly. His brother James called her a liar and a fraud, warning that while she might one day enjoy freedom, she would never escape the memories. He reminded her that every night she would see Bob's face and the tears of the children she orphaned. Deborah, Bob's sister, stared at Amy as she asked the one question that haunted them all. Did he beg you to stop? No one would ever know. Then came Bob's mother, Audrey, heartbroken and trembling, reading a letter filled with grief over a final goodbye that never came. Amy sat silent, eyes on the floor, wiping away tears. The judge, bound by the plea agreement, condemned the damage Amy had done, not only to her husband, but to her children, her community, and her own future. He sentenced her to 20 years in prison. Under Kentucky law, she became eligible for parole after serving 85% of her sentence. That meant 17 years behind bars. On May 17, 2022, exactly 17 years after Bob's murder, Amy Bosley, then 54 years old, walked out of the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women. Most news outlets barely noted her release. Her current whereabouts remain unknown, but some believe she may have gone in search of the millions she once siphoned away. As for Bob, his final resting place is St. Stephen's Cemetery in Campbell County, Kentucky. A man remembered for his generosity, ambition, and devotion to family, cut down by the very person he trusted most. In hindsight, Amy's actions seem both tragic and senseless. She wasn't destitute, her husband wasn't cruel, the IRS might have worked out a settlement, and if her motive was revenge, a divorce might have left her richer and free, but instead, she chose murder. And as the old American proverb goes, one made famous by Benjamin Franklin, nothing is certain except death and taxes. In Amy Bosley's case, both came knocking.
Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.